Welcome everybody, welcome. Hope everyone's had a nice bit of food and ready to relax into this session. This is a super exciting 30 minutes. We've got three vastly different organisations, that's very exciting to me. We've got a wildlife rescue non-profit, a fintech leader, and a national real estate franchise. But they all share something in... Okay, welcome. We all share something powerful in common. They've transformed how they operate and grow using their tech stack, including HubSpot as a customer platform. We're going to explore how we align technology with a mission and a clear strategy to drive real impact. Whether you're saving wildlife, pioneering innovation as a national franchise group, or simplifying finance. So what we might do is actually start off with some intros, if that's okay. Jenny, maybe I'll go to you first, if that's okay. If you could.
Thanks. So LJ Hooker is one of Australia and New Zealand's largest franchise organisations, and we've been around coming up to 100 years very, very soon. We've got approximately 350 offices across Australia and New Zealand, and they have 4,000 employees between them. So there's a large group of people that we need to maintain contact with and ensure that they're appropriately communicated to. My role is GM of delivery and procurement, probably not the standard kind of person you see at these kinds of events. But I am forming a conduit between the business requirements of the business and then the commercial process for choosing, procuring a solution, and then with the implementation side of my role, delivering that solution into the business.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jenny. What about yourself, Chris?
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm the CMO at Now Finance. So Now Finance, for those who aren't aware, we're a consumer lender, a non-bank sector. We really focus on the mid-market in Australia and offer loans for the really significant life events and goals. We really pride ourselves on the simplicity and transparency of what we offer customers, which is relevant to what we'll talk about today. And we have three predominant distribution channels. We have a very large broker network, direct to consumer. We also have a white label offering as well. So lots of diversity in terms of how we go to market. Again, that'll be relevant later on.
Thanks, Chris. And Marcus?
Marcus, I'm the CTO of WISE. That's the largest wildlife rescue organisation in Australia. We're primarily New South Wales based, but have a national presence. And so we have about 4,000 volunteers, primarily in New South Wales. We do have operations in Queensland, Tasmania, and yeah, that's about me.
Awesome, thank you. I told you they were vastly different, didn't I? Just a massive round of applause here for our panel as well, just to get some energy going in the room. Thank you. It doesn't matter what type of business you are, though. Every transformation begins with that moment of clarity, that realization like the status quo isn't going to get you where you need to be. So we're going to just explore that slightly to start with, if that's okay. Chris, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah,
Now Finance. So you obviously made the bold decision to eliminate all fees from your products. That's huge for your industry, right? Yeah. Can you walk us through how fragmented systems were holding you back and the ambitions and that customer-first approach that you took?
Yeah, sure. So we're very much a growth-focused business. We're sort of in the scale-up phase, I would say. But as an organisation, we've never sort of taken on huge amounts of capital and sort of really tried to grow artificially fast. It's been very sort of measured in how we've approached it. As a result, we've oftentimes at the early stage of our business used a lot of our back-end systems for front-end tasks and processes. So we had our customer service teams and sales teams, using 3 different platforms just to do one interaction with customers. So that was really starting to hold back our ability to scale, to grow, to be able to deal with the sort of volume of growth we're getting through all of our channels, yet still give the service that we wanted and also the simplicity. We had a lot of complexity we were trying to manage, and it's really hard to give customers a simple experience when you've got all this complexity, chaos in the back end. So for us, it was really important to be able to continue that growth trajectory, to continue to serve our customers well, that we had to really get our house in order and get the right tools for the job. And that's where sort of HubSpot's been instrumental in sort of being able to bring together all those systems so that we can achieve those objectives.
Wonderful. Thanks, Chris. Marcus, you've been on a different journey. I think WISE has tripled in size, you mentioned to me, over the years, and you're coordinating over like 1,000 volunteers now, which is sensational across New South Wales. But you're obviously resource constrained. We've been talking about that backstage as well. What was the specific moment you realised technology transformation was your biggest opportunity to scale impact?
So the 2019 bushfires really propelled Wise into the global spotlight. We had 500,000 individual donations come in the course of that year, and that really gave us an opportunity to transform the sector as a whole. Along with that massive influx of funds came with a bit of a obligation to do something a little bit more and really make the whole sector a bit more efficient and ensure the long-term viability for all of the Australian wildlife there. So to achieve this, we had to grow really quickly, and that's both in scale and scope. So it involved introducing a whole bunch of new teams, like our grants programs, the facilities management, and an emergency response team. And part of that growth was the introduction of specialist IT leadership, which is when I actually came in and joined Wise. So so when I got there, it was immediately clear that all that growth had led to the development of silos. And so previously, with the organisation being a lot smaller, they could just rely on the natural spread of information, between all the different people, because they just literally sat next door to each other. But as you just mentioned, we've literally grown from 20 to over 100 people in the course of a couple of years. As the teams grew, they all started focusing inwards and really coming up just with their own solutions. So there was systems primarily for the contacts across all the relevant departments, like the call centre and the fundraising and the volunteer teams. They all had their own systems, which are obviously overlapped, and that's rather inefficient. So when I got there, it was apparent that the tech stack had to be looked at, and the whole systems architecture needed a lot of attention. But with that comes a tremendous opportunity to simplify that stack and improve the functionality and the efficiency, the cost effectiveness. And so in the end, we literally identified 5 different systems that would replace with HubSpot. So the volunteer and the donor data, that's an obvious fit to the CRM, but a 24-hour wildlife rescue hotline, that's pretty niche. There's not really software off the shelf that works for that. So with Engaging IO's help, we were able to map the calls to an extended ticket structure, and that includes some rich information about the rescue, and then we utilise the pipelines to manage the rescue through the life cycle. Looking forward, we're aiming to share our successes and our savings with the rest of the sector, and so the first first cab off the rank with that is Tasmania, which we're doing in a couple of months.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for everything you do at Wise. I think it's wonderful. Jenny, over to yourself. Huge 100-year anniversary coming up for the business. And I know there's obviously bigger goals for the next 100 years. How have you approached rethinking your technology strategy as you aim for that next 100 years in business, which is quite amazing, to support the vision?
Yeah, look, we started our journey, as I think a lot of people do, in the marketing sort of side of things with the Marketing Hub and the content management solution, and we built our website around that. So when I joined the business, that was already in train and there. We were just finishing off the office website. So we're running our own corporate website plus 400 other websites basically off the solution. We were using the CRM essentially, those a dumping ground for that information, so it wasn't actively used to drive sort of business outcomes. So when I came into the role, I was employed by the CIO to help try to implement some technology principles that he'd started to bring into the business and start to look at more enterprise-wide solutions across the board. And what he was doing with those technology principles was doing the shift from custom-built solutions that were sort of on-prem, moving to cloud-based solutions and SaaS solutions, but not heavily customized. So looking to simplify customization and use more out-of-the-box technology, which obviously helps with cost, which is where my procurement side comes in. So we were focusing on replacing legacy systems that we'd had in the business for 30 plus years that were built on an old code base, and trying to look at how do we do that replacement in a very complex business structure that's servicing numerous customers with very specific needs. What we did was look at things from a functional perspective, and HubSpot came up as the functional choice for us in terms of communication with our customers who are franchisees, but also communication with end user customers, so our customers' customers as well. It basically allowed a network unified approach to communications, but also to contract management, lifecycle management and performance management of those offices as well, and enabled a cohesive approach to engagement with those customers. And the challenges that we were specifically looking to tackle were things like you've just mentioned before around transparency, visibility, and again, data centralization and unification, having a picture of the customer in one place that we can then use that data to help grow and enable those relationships more.
Nice. Thanks, Jenny. Interesting, you've all got a lot of similarities there around reducing your tech stack as well, simplifying it and having it in a unified platform. So that's fantastic. Very different businesses though, doing the same things. Okay, so you've all made the leap to a unified customer platform, like you mentioned, HubSpot. I want to dive a little bit more now to like what it looks like in practice for all of you, and how each of you are using HubSpot to solve completely different operational challenges and drive results. Marcus, I'm going to start with you on this one, if you're okay. Wildlife rescue involves complex coordination. You talked about the initial calls you're getting through, rehabilitation to release, and you're currently on this transformation journey with HubSpot. Can you walk us through how the platform is enabling you to scale your operations and where you see it taking Wise in the future?
So as a not-for-profit that receives minimal government funding, we have to make sure that everything we do is as cost-effective as possible. So from a fundraising perspective, we need to utilise socials and low-cost mass communication methods. By consolidating our donors, our training volunteers, and our call centre data into HubSpot, obviously, and mixing in engagement measures, we've been able to get far better insight into the potential donors and tailor the communications to maximise the return. Standard CRM functionality. But the functionality that we were able to ramp up really quickly within HubSpot, and which allowed us previously unobtainable levels of insight and control, and we're hoping that will really reflect in the end of financial year figures. Big time for us. Where we start to diverge from the generic use is the cross-pollination of tools between the different teams. So the volunteers and the time that they donate are critical to our sustainability. So we have a whole bunch of different volunteers. We've got Rescue 101 people who can transport animals to the vet or to our carers. We've got wombat treaters who medicate wombats out in the field, and we've got full members who can rescue and rehabilitate the wildlife. And then we have specialists like snake handlers and raptor handlers. Ideally, we'd get everyone through to be a member, but not everyone's willing to go straight into that straight away because of the huge time commitments. There hadn't been a methodical approach to get people from the lower tier volunteering to the top tier before. But after we merged all our data and had a bit more communication between the different teams, we found that the volunteer journey can really be reflected the same way as a customer journey. And so our fundraising team has been working with our volunteers team to identify the personas and all the different touch points and map that journey out.
Superb.
So where we've really made HubSpot our own though is the call center system. So we've developed a custom interface to tickets hosted within HubSpot. That allows us to augment the standard ticket structure with caller details, with rescue details like the species and the cause of injury. And then it identifies if that ticket's already been, or if that animal's already been reported to prevent duplicates. And then it integrates with our other systems, like we've got a system that broadcasts out the rescues to all of our volunteers in the correct area who have the correct specialty, and that then prevents multiple volunteers going to the same animal. So once rescued, the rehabilitation information is also synced back into HubSpot, giving us some nice rich reporting across all of our callers, our volunteers, and our rescues. So we're just at the start of this whole development process. The initial focus was to replace our 20-year-old system, which we've now done. And now we get to go to the real fun stuff and build all the new exciting features.
Wonderful. That's amazing. I love that. The fact that you're literally using technology to take that initial call and actually then pinpoint the right volunteer to go out and help an animal. It's sensational. There's a lot of trust in there with your volunteers. Chris, over to you on this one though.
Sure.
Trust in the lending space. It's a big focus, right? It's super important. It's paramount to obviously making sure it's through the whole customer journey, which is quite complex. How has having a single source of truth changed how you build and maintain those customer relationships and the trust throughout the loan process?
Yep. It's been fundamentally important. I think I mentioned before we'd been using a lot of our back-end systems to do front-end tasks. All of our back-end systems are necessarily architected around the product. So this loan or this application, and then it would have a customer as an attribute of the product. And so when you're trying to have these conversations with people, with the actual customers, the customer is an attribute of the product, that doesn't make sense. So we really needed to use HubSpot to be able to architect all of our product and relationships to an individual person. We've also got that added complexity around having multiple distribution channels. So if we think about a customer that might be coming to us from a broker, we've got a relationship with the customer. Could be two customers if they have a joint loan together. There's the broker. There's also then the brokerage or the company that the broker is associated with. So all of a sudden we've got this very complicated network of relationships between people and products and those sorts of things. So you can imagine if all your systems are focused on the product, the ability to have that customer relationship, to have that understanding around where the customer is at, where they're coming from, it's impossible. So by architecting our HubSpot instance, and we've got Sales Hub, Service Hub, and Marketing Hub, and architecting our deals and contacts and having all those associations set up, that's been really critical for us to be able to have our system actually implement in a way that customers understand their interactions with us and us to be able to respond appropriately. So without that kind of enablement, there's no way we'd be able to sort of continue to engage with customers. You know, a big part of the growth that I spoke about before was about having new products to offer as well. And we introduced a car loan and auto loan product through our broker channel. That's actually really important and a hard thing to do because historically we were just one product. So when you have one product, you can kind of get away with it a little bit. But when you start to have multiple products to offer and you have a growth strategy that's predicated upon being able to meet more needs for customers at different stages within their life, the average customer is with us for like 5 years. That's a huge amount of time. So you can't do that if you don't have that pure customer understanding. And so that's why the transition and movement onto the HubSpot platform, be able to take advantage of the way that is architected, which is fundamentally customer-centric, has been critical to grow, but with that is the trust. Because if you're speaking to the customer as they're an attribute of a product, that's not helpful. That's not how anyone wants to be thought of or spoken to, and that degrades trust. So really important.
Yeah, definitely. I've been on the other side of the fence, for a different provider, and I definitely didn't get that experience. So good to hear. Good to hear. Jenny, back to you. You mentioned like 400 offices. Coordination is very critical, obviously, for your business. How has the platform unification improved LJ Hooker's ability to support your franchise partners, and what operational efficiencies have you been able to quantify?
Yeah, I think it comes under the categories of communication, transparency and visibility. They're three things that have drastically improved since we've implemented HubSpot. So real estate's built on relationships, and I think we've heard a lot today about the human side of things, and that's where the value add is in our business, is people being able to talk to other people and sell houses. That's what they want to do. They don't want to be managing the relationship with the franchisor. So it's important that every touch point within our business understands where that relationship is with the franchisee and understands where certain aspects of their business are in terms of where they are in their position of their contract, or if they're having some service issues or what have you, so that we can better support them. Look, we have a focus, like all businesses here, on sales, retention and performance. And I think the first thing that we did when we started implementing Sales Hub was work with a partner back to implement a sales pipeline to enable us to get that transparency on where we were with potential franchisees coming into the network and looking at kind of growth, so bringing that really to life. We initially implemented it and it was 22 phases long, which is huge. Over time, we've now adjusted that and we've now reduced it to 13 meaningful phases that the salespeople really relate to and make sense to our franchisees as well, which is really good. We've integrated with our contract management system as well, so information's auto-populating into the office record and the contact records within HubSpot as well, which means we know where we are in the stage of the relationship and what that nurture cycle should look like for that customer in that stage of the relationship. And everyone that's touching, I don't like that word, but everyone that's communicating with the customer knows where they're at as well and what that means to the relationship between the parties. It also helps us understand what our conversion rate is. It's a long lead time conversion, our sales pipeline, and there's a lot of nuance to it. So it's good to be able to track the conversion rate over time and make sure that that's increasing over time. We've also built renewal pipelines, so that's again supporting sales and retention. And we've migrated all of our franchisee contacts, offices and people into HubSpot with the capacity to segment those as well in terms of being able to target certain people potentially to become a franchise owner if they're at that stage in the career where it would be applicable. And we're recording all communication against office and contacts. Adoption across our business is high. It's led by the executive team. The CEO is in the system all the time and questions why other people aren't if she sees that they're not. So that's really good because it means that it's leading from the front, which is really important. The other thing we've done is we've nominated a product manager and implemented change control across the system, because with lots of people touching systems and entering data, it's really important that governance of that data and permissioning is important, and also that you don't want everybody touching all the contacts all the time. And we do have a pipeline of work sitting there, so automation of user creation, service desk, looking at AI where it makes sense in terms of chatbot capability. Workspaces look very interesting. So at the moment, how we're looking at how that might apply to us, and building out executive reporting, cost to serve models, and more integration.
Quite a bit, Jenny. Quite a bit.
Just a little bit
Yeah,
busy.
very broadly used across the whole business. But you know, the key thing I picked up there is it's being driven by leadership, and that will drive adoption. That's super important. And you've got some great wins in there, getting people on board, reducing processes down to 22 to 13. It's a lot of efficiency. I'm sure your sales team absolutely love that.
Yep.
Our sales team would love that sort of efficiency. We've heard there's 3 great stories there. Before I open up, we're going to do a Q&A, so get your questions ready. But before we do that, if someone here in the audience is just thinking about unifying their customer platform or wants to have a more integrated approach, what's the one piece, just one piece of practical advice you'd give them based on your experience so far? Marcus, why don't we start with you?
Cool. So our success has really been built on the clear vision that we have of where the sector needs us to develop to. So I'm a tech guy. And so to me, that really means that it let us determine the technical requirements and then roll them into a solid enterprise architecture there. But then when we get to the implementation stage, and specifically with HubSpot, my biggest recommendation would be to do what we did and really make it your own. So HubSpot comes with, if anyone that was in this room just before lunch, we saw a massive list of apps and stuff, the integration points basically that HubSpot has. There's a huge number of those. They're awesome, but even more so you can develop your own. So yeah, definitely make HubSpot work for you.
I like it. And you even had a key sorry if you don't mind me asking this, you had a key takeaway you've had from today already as well, which is going to have a quick impact to your business. Do you mind sharing?
Of course. So in the obviously, one of the big features of today seems to be AI. Every single session seems to talk about AI. So one of the things was the AI agent, which I think most of the focus was really on to external customers. That's the way HubSpot really thinks it should be used, or the way it's sort of being pushed. But for us, one of our biggest time commitments is the internal volunteer communication. So we have a lot of requests coming from the volunteers. We literally have a whole team dedicated to answering their questions and just keeping them happy, really. And if we can automate some of the simple things, which a lot of them are probably really simple, and just really hand-holding and just telling them they're doing a great job. So if we can automate a whole bunch of that, then we can free up the time to actually, or the volunteers team can do bigger win tasks with their time rather than a whole bunch of small repetitive communication.
Yeah, so good. I can't wait to hear how that goes, to be honest, by the way. Jenny, over to you. If there's one piece of practical advice you can give the audience.
Saying one.
I know, because I said one specifically because I know you have a lot of different ideas, but just the one if we can.
Okay, look, I think clarity on the outcomes you're trying to achieve and how you're going to measure success of those outcomes, and don't be frightened to iterate. There you are, I put 3 in one.
That was very concise. I did ask that of you and you nailed it, absolutely. Chris?
From our perspective, where we've got the biggest amount of value is really spending the time to get our data mapping right. When we were setting up all of our instances, the work that we had to do was thinking around the use cases that we needed to architect for, and then doing the data mapping as part of that. It was quite a long process, and at times sort of painful because you're dealing with lots of spreadsheets and so forth. We were lucky to work with an integration partner that was really helpful in that process because we could use their guidance, and I can see right at the front there from BAC. Their team were really, really helpful to help us understand. They're the experts in what HubSpot can do. We know our business, and as they learnt our business, help us get the data mapping right to enable then the implementation to work really, really effectively from the outset. So it's a bit of a laborious process because you've got like hundreds of data variables that you need to map from your systems into the HubSpot systems, but you spend the time and do that right, and then once you get going, you're flying. So it's not something to rush, and get the right experts to help you through that process.
I love that advice, and I also do agree. I think partners play a real pivotal role in the process.
Yeah, I mean, we're experts in our business, and we know that HubSpot can do the things that we want to achieve. Mm-hmm. But there's much more stuff that HubSpot can do that we haven't thought of. Yep. And there's different ways you can set things up. And so I think having that expertise to be able to put all of the power of HubSpot into your context as a business really helps you get the right sort of setup and solution for you.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Perfect. All right, this is the most daunting part for our panel, where we're going to actually do a live Q&A from people in the audience. So I hope you've all been thinking of your fantastic questions and tricky questions. I've been asked to pick out really friendly faces when you put your hands up. But let's go to the audience if we can. I think there's a couple of mics roaming around. Here we go.
So this question is for Jenny from LJ Hooker. I wrote it down because it's long. I'm in B2B marketing, and we often have long sales lead times. And trying to share the value for leads that can be more than 6 months old is a challenge. What value does HubSpot add when tracking long lead times, and what can you share back with leadership or the board?
So I think that the first thing that the sales process implementation did for us was to understand what the lead time actually was, because I think while people intrinsically understood it was long, they didn't necessarily know how long. And then understanding throughout that life cycle journey what the kinds of conversations that you are having. It's more about the storytelling and the context, to be honest with you, with the executive, in terms of them understanding and you're bringing to life the process for them, and then being able to put that into measurable terms that show the time to value is going to be X. And I think once you can do that and people start to understand, and you've got quantifiable data that you're wrapping around your story, it makes it a lot more digestible to people then to go, okay, great, But keeping in mind, then you're going to start getting asked questions about your pipeline, because if things are taking longer to come to conversion, your pipeline needs to be bigger so that you've got people at all stages of that conversion consistently going through. That makes sense?
Okay, there we go. Got it going. Thank you for sharing your journey. It's very, very helpful and insightful for us. This is a question to the whole panel. Obviously, customers don't see lines between business functions, but businesses do. What were some of the hurdles you had in selling in HubSpot as a unified platform to the different business functions, and any advice or tips in being able to sell in something like HubSpot to different business functions with different challenges and needs?
I'll have a crack to start with. Fortunate at Now Finance, we're not a huge business, so it's quite easy to sort of have in-depth conversations with different stakeholders and sort of get them on early. Certainly with our sales teams, one of the big reservations is around, don't slow us down. We're busy, we've got sales to make. Change is great, but as long as it doesn't slow us down. So starting small was really important, and being able to demonstrate use cases and help them feel comfortable around, well, what is that future state going to look like, was very important. We also got a couple of champions within that team as well. So that helped to sort of have that advocacy within the sales function, helped with adoption more broadly. But we're also like benefit of having a small business, executive level all on board, multiple functions in charge of delivering HubSpot, kind of helps that broad-based support. But really it's the key piece of resistance, and still today, around change is for our sales teams that don't slow us down. So doing it slow, helping them to see the benefits that's going to come. Sometimes you've got to explain it lots of different ways. You can talk through it, you can show diagrams, do things in sandbox, those sorts of things, but help them sort of see how it's actually going to make them work quicker. Okay.
Me? All right, next question. This is to Marcus. Firstly, just thank you for the work that you do. It's incredible. Should stand up. There you go. Yeah, thank you for the work you do, for the wildlife, amazing work. I'm just staggered by the volunteers that you manage, so I'm just keen to understand, is there a way you can use HubSpot or use HubSpot to like enable the volunteers or train them or assess them? Like it's a big team to manage. Just keen to see how you might use HubSpot to do that volunteering enablement.
Yep, so we definitely use HubSpot for the management of the volunteers. So we do have a large number. We've got 4,000 in total. We've got 3,000 of those are full members and then 1,000 auxiliaries. Like I was saying, we want to convert the rest of those 1,000 across to the full members. So that's something that we're working on. We also need to increase our volunteer base in general. So we've got our donors who are potential volunteers, which we will be targeting to sort of become a bit more involved rather than just coughing up money, but put some of the time in as well. One of the next steps is also we have a separate volunteer portal, which is sort of like an interface for our volunteers to access information. And this is what we were talking about before, with a whole bunch of other things that we will be doing in the near future after today around like the simple interactions based off the knowledge base and things like that, where some of the communications, because while we have a lot of volunteers, a fair number of them are fairly technically challenged, is probably the best way of putting it. It probably goes hand in hand with people that want to go out there and rescue, little things that bite them and not being inside on a computer. So they aren't very good at finding their own information and things like that. So we will definitely be trying to make that a little bit easier for them to access using some of the tools being talked about today, some of the AI tools in particular. And that's built upon what we already had planned, which was to build out our volunteer portal, which is a secured away area. So yeah, we do have, we definitely utilize HubSpot for them, and not just from the fundraising perspective. and I'm certain that I don't know if it's just us or if this is something that HubSpot offer to everyone. You know, it could just be that they're being really kind to us as a not-for-profit, but our guy, I don't actually know what his title is, but Zach, our guy, is really good at helping us sort of identify the things that we don't know to what we can do better within HubSpot. So that's always growing, and we've got a huge list of things to work on already, and I'm sure that will just continue to grow.
That's great. That's Zach, Customer Success Manager.
That guy.
Well done, Zach, if you're in the room. Well done. Next question.
Yeah, hello. Thanks to the panel for all the questions. By the way, our success manager is Zach too. The question is for the panel. I like your stories around the end-to-end customer platform, but what is actually that one thing you wish HubSpot could do what it can't do yet from your point of view as a business?
I'll answer that.
Go, Jenny.
The one thing that I wish was that it's easier to replicate data between different environments to enable a proper development flow into production. At the moment, we're really struggling with that. We're trying to develop multiple different things, and just the release process is problematic. So that would be for me, definitely. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like we've got much more functionality to be using than what we are currently got scope to do. So there's nothing jumps out as that is a gap per se. I think that's a good point. We try and build things in Sandbox, and then you've got to take them into production and those sorts of things. But sometimes we just do stuff in production because it's quicker. But nothing really. There's so much more functionality that we're actually not fully taking advantage of as yet. So yeah, that's a bit of a cop out, isn't it? Just agreeing with Jenny and then saying nothing else, but yep.
From my perspective, so originally I was a software developer, so nothing because I'll make it work.
Yeah, Jenny's answer, yeah. And that is something that's being worked on. I do know that.
Yeah, it is something that's being worked on, but I also think that because if you've got multiple stakeholders in the environment, which is, this is a system that, like we've seen across a lot of the conversations today, you want your business users to be in there and innovating in. You want to encourage that, but you do need that control so that you don't end up going, what is this in production and how did it get here?
Good answer. Any more questions? Going once, going twice? Okay, you're done. So please, massive round of applause, please, for our panelists. Thank you very much. It was definitely, from my perspective, it's great to hear how 3 different businesses are using HubSpot to obviously continue their growth. There's some common themes through here, though. It's definitely how you're making it easier for your teams to use and simplifying processes, deploying obviously new ways faster, and obviously doing it on a unified platform. I think, honestly, perfect examples of what we're trying to achieve here. So again, another round of applause. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Thank you. Cheers.